Hello, everybody, and thanks for listening in to the Live as Lions podcast, where we are in pursuit to live life wild and free.
On today's episode, we are going to talk about being stuck and how it feels like being in the belly of a whale. So, if you know us a little bit and you've been to our concerts, you might have heard us once in a while talking about how when we're stuck, it feels like we're in the belly of a whale. And
if you have been to one of our concerts, I'm sure you had the privilege to be part of a dozen people, a couple dozen people, thousands of people. I mean, we have big audiences, you know, to make whale noises, right?
Yes, we make our listeners definitely fight for the next songs. And we do that because, and we talk about that because it is something that it resonated with us of how it feels to be stuck. So you guys might know the story of Jonah and the whale. It's in the Bible, it's in the Quran, it's in folk stories. It's a pretty well-known story in many cultures around the world. But for those of you who don't know it, let us paraphrase this story so you have a little bit of a content of what we're talking about here. So there was a man named Jonah, and God asked Jonah to go to a city called Nineveh to help his people. So this city was really wild and out of control. It was chaotic. People were just doing a lot of crimes and terror. And God wanted Jonah to go there to help him. And Jonah said, nope, that is a really terrible idea.
Nope. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. I don't have time for that. I'm going to go somewhere else. And so he ran away from going to Nineveh. He got on a ship with a few other men, and they started going to a different place, and then a big storm came. And the men really felt like this storm was because of Jonah. And so they threw him over in the middle of the ocean. And when he was in the ocean, a big whale came and chewed him up and swallowed him up and put him in his belly. And Jonah stayed there for 3 days and 3 nights until he finally agreed to go to Nineveh. And then the whale came and spit him up. He got out and he walked on to Nineveh. And that is a really, really wild story. But for us, it really resonates with how we feel when we are stuck. We feel uncomfortable. We feel trapped. We feel like we're not in the right place and we don't know how to get out of it. And quite frankly, we feel disgusting. Like we are just not who we're supposed to be. Kind of like how you would feel if you were in the belly of a whale. So today we're going to talk about our biggest season in our family of being stuck, what it felt like, why we got stuck, how we got out of it. And at the end, we're going to share some pretty big life-changing decisions that us as a family have decided and what we are going to be doing next. So Uli, why don't you share a little bit about our 7 years of feeling stuck?
7 years. Oh my goodness. Hearing it like this, it sounds pathetic. It's like, who broke the mirror? You know that? Like, if you break a mirror, it's 7 years of bad luck.
Oh, yeah.
Must be a German thing, maybe.
Oh.
Is it?
No, I know it too.
All right. So that's how 7 years looked like, you know, or this is how the story goes. We were in a small place, small village. Things were great. Work was going good. Relationships were fantastic. However, we felt it's time to upgrade. Level up and move to the big city with the hopes of new options, new perspectives, new opportunities.
Yep.
So we did that. And nothing worked out.
Nope.
Armageddon. Everything started falling apart.
One by one.
Even in the beginning, we had to couch surf for 6 months in order to find an apartment.
Thanks to all of our friends who let us sleep on their couch.
That's right. Thank you, guys. But yeah, the goals we set for our work, for our job, for our project didn't work out. Friendships and relationships started crumbling. Perspectives disappeared. Whoop! Suddenly gone. And things became really hard and there was no fruit. I remember being bored, being uninspired, feeling lonely. And the worst thing was a lack of perspective.
Yeah.
living in a small village before that time in the city was more attractive and more fun and more just rewarding because I had perspective. So I didn't care if it was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then coming to this big city that looks very attractive and sounds attractive, there was no perspective. It made it a worse place to be in.
Right.
You know? However, hey, what a great time to decide to grow your family. And that's when we also decided in that season to start our adoption process.
On today's episode, we're sponsoring our adoption agency, Small World Adoption. Small World is a family-led nonprofit adoption agency based out of Nashville, Tennessee, passionate about preserving and enhancing the lives of children at home and around the world. Small World is a Hague-accredited agency that serves domestic, international, and embryo adoptions. Uniquely, Small World also serves expat families living abroad who desire to adopt. That's actually how we found them. Small World helped our family be wild and free when we adopted our daughter from China. They fought for us to become a family and never gave up until our little lion was home safely in our arms. If you're looking for an agency that will treat you like family while you're growing your family, then go with an agency led by a family. Lions, check out smallworldadoption.com to help your family grow wild and free.
Dimensions love Small World.
Yeah, so everything was just wild and crazy in our lives, but building our family was something that was extremely important to us. And even though everything around us felt really unstable, we knew that was something that we needed to do in this season. So here we are, an American and a German who really were passionate about international adoption. And we thought, how on earth are we going to do this? So we live in Germany, and we contacted our local child services in order to figure out, how do you do an adoption? And basically, we were told that for us, the best situation would be if we could actually work with an American adoption agency. There's many reasons for that, but the main reason was that I'm an American. America has a really great system for international adoption, and it would just be a lot easier than working with Germany. This is what Germany told us. And so we found...
We were like, oh, really? That's an option?
Yeah,
Great.
We didn't know
Cool.
that was an option. That's wonderful. So we ended up finding a wonderful adoption agency that works with expats abroad. They told us they've been doing this for many years. It was no problem. And we eventually ended up doing our adoption with them, our China adoption for our daughter. And what happened was, once everything was finalized with the adoption, we had been matched. We had, if you know what a dossier is, our dossier was approved, and we were basically just waiting for the travel date. I
was getting ready. I was like, okay, what do I need? I need to...
Whatever. You don't get ready for travel until it's like 48 hours before.
I need to get my nice pants. I need to get my nice shirt. Maybe I should go to the hairdresser before we leave. So my
I went to the
daughter has
hairdresser before we left.
Of me.
And they ruined my hair, and I was totally crying. Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, I decided, nope, I'm not going.
I was like, my daughter's not going to love me because my hair is ugly. Anyways, back on track. So it was right before, I don't know, it was like maybe like a few weeks before we were leaving to go to China. And we got this letter from Germany that basically said, what are you doing? You're doing an international adoption.
Yeah, because I asked, hey, guys, so remember our conversation? We're now kind of at this point where things are getting real. Shall we talk about what's next in the process?
For the immigration on the German side. Yeah.
So cool, isn't it? And then, we got the response like, what
are you doing?
Mr. Manchin, what you doing? Hold your horses. This is not how it works.
Right. And so we responded back with, obviously confusion, because this is what we were directed to do. And we said, so what do we do now? And there was literally no response. And so we ended up deciding to...
because that's unfortunately what was chosen. Unfortunately, that's the method that was chosen by, in our scenario, let's just not respond and see what happens.
Right. There was no direction, no response of what we were supposed to do now. So in that moment, our adoption agency recommended that we would just fly directly back to the United States, and that we would be able to finalize the citizenship there for the US and then go back to Germany and apply for citizenship. The problem then was that that would require us having to live in the United States for an unforeseen amount of time. It could have been 3 months, it could have been 8 months, it could have been a year. We didn't know until the citizenship was over.
For the processing of the citizenship. So once you come back, right?
Right.
Let's say we would have gone directly from China to the States. The process would have started by crossing the border, and from that moment on, it could take up to 8-12 months.
Right.
Nobody really can tell you in advance how long it will take, but it might take a long time.
Right. And at that point, I mean, Uli didn't have a green card, and we didn't know if we would be separated as a family, and it just felt really, really risky for us to just...
I already saw myself, okay, you and our new daughter gonna stay in the States, and I gonna hop over to an island, make some vacation, then come back to the States.
You're supposed to be the realist, and I'm supposed to be the idealist in this relationship. But no, you were definitely not like that.
Needless to say, yes. Due to that, me being the realist, I was like, nope, not like
this isn't going to happen.
This is not going to happen,
So we ended up contacting the German embassy in China, and they told us we had everything we needed in order to take our daughter back to Germany and to get her citizenship. We had a good and lawful Hague international adoption, and there was absolutely no reason why she was not going to become a German citizen since her father was German. And so we made the decision based off that information after China, after we picked up our daughter, to come back to Germany. So we brought her home. It was a wonderful travel home back. We got into the country. Everything was fine. We came back. We were totally, settling and cocooning, as they say, in the adoption
nesting.
world. We were nesting, and it was just a wonderful time. We could just breathe. We thought, she's home. She's here. Maybe this is, this is us feeling not stuck anymore. This is our new chapter in our lives, and we felt like this was it. But
it was Christmas. There was hot glühwein. There was presents.
It was a really, really sweet time. But then soon after that, I remember you were still feeling just uneasy. You were feeling like, no, I still just don't feel like we're in the right place, and I don't know what's going on. And Uli, the thing with us is that we really know how to support each other when we're going through things. And one of the things that I always encourage Uli to do when I feel like he's having a bad day or he's wrestling with something, I just look at him and I point and I say, go to the forest. And that basically means just take whatever it is.
Get out of my hair.
Yeah, get out of here. But take whatever it is that you're wrestling with and go to the forest and process it and deal with it. So Uli, I sent you into the forest, and then what happened?
Yeah, I'm a lot in the forest, so I that's just for me the place where I can think, just being surrounded by nature, being by myself. That's where I feel like I can process, I can think, I can meditate. This is also this is a spiritual place for me. That's where I feel like this is kind of like my church, and here I have the best reception. and so I go a lot on walks, and I always tell Liz, like, if you really want to get some answers out of me, let's go on a walk. And if I want to get answers out of myself, I do the same. So I went on a walk, and I remember, my goodness, I was frustrated. I was restless. I was frustrated. I was mad that I had to, because I knew there's still a process coming with the whole German side of the adoption, and I was just frustrated that this came to this point. I understood there was some misunderstanding on both sides that just brought us to this point. However, I was just mad. I didn't want to be in this situation.
Right.
Yeah? And it also just felt like after a long time feeling stuck in this season in the whale, in this stinky, wet, moist fish.
Oh gosh. You just said moist. Half our audience is cringing right now.
Yeah. It's just on top of it, this is now also affected by it. This precious adoption process. And I remember I walked through the woods on a fast pace and I was like, man, like, why are we stuck in a whale? Why does it feel like we're stuck in a whale and we're trying and we are just giving our best and we're not short of ideas, and now this happened. I'm so done with this. And suddenly another question came up in my mind, and it was, well, why don't you ask what was Nineveh? So instead of why am I stuck in a whale, to come from a different perspective and say, well, what was Nineveh in the first place that I said no to? If I go back into the story of Jonah, because I remember processing this out loud. I don't even remember there was a Nineveh, yeah, and I don't even remember I had the opportunity to go somewhere or not. So let's forget about the whale for a second and talk about what the heck was Nineveh supposed to be. And even though I didn't know the answer to this, just the perspective of asking this question and coming from a different perspective got me excited. And I walked home and I brought that question to you. I was like, Liz, so I just had a very interesting shift in perspective, and this question came up in my mind. What do you think about this?
I remember when you said that, like, what was Nineveh? I was like, oh shoot. And I just remember this cringe in my body of going, there was something very important about that question. And exactly, just like the perspective shift of, we've been so focused on why are we in a whale? Why us? Why are we trapped in
like
here?
This victim
mentality.
Why did the whale swallow me?
Right.
Couldn't he have swallowed somebody else? And that's not fair. And
but we never asked the where.
I guess
where were we supposed to go?
We were too obsessed with our circumstances. Like,
why.
We were too busy just wrestling or being in this whale instead of just like taking a step away and be like, okay, cool, whale, stuck, we're in it.
Now what?
But where did this even start? Yeah.
And so in that time, that's where we got together. I think for a week we committed every night for after we put our daughter to bed for 2 hours, we would just talk and wrestle and pray and process stuff. And in that time, we realized that over and over and over again, the past 7 years, we were either asked or encouraged to go to the United States. There was multiple opportunities for work that we were asked to come back. Because of the adoption, we were encouraged to go back.
For family reasons.
For family reasons. And over and over again, we said no.
We're really disciplined in saying no.
No, yeah.
and I didn't even notice it back then. I didn't notice that I was very
it wasn't like a conscious, we're saying no to the United States, but
Yeah.
I think we realized in that moment over and over again how often it was presented to us to go there.
Yeah.
And that was a really, really wild week of just realizing that. And so we'll come back to the why we ended up, staying and not going in a second. But let's come back to our timeline and our story. So right after that, we basically realized it was like, okay, I think we need to go to the United States, but we weren't ready to really commit to that. And then soon after, basically, the German government came after our family. We were notified that the Jugendamt, which is like the local child services in our state, were very, very concerned about our adoption, believing that we had done an illegal adoption.
Well, actually, I didn't realize that till much later in the process.
Right.
I thought
That's
they
true.
gonna pay us a nice visit to help us to figure out
The immigration. That's how they
the
presented it
immigration.
first.
Yeah,
They
that's
said,
how it was, because I asked, "Hey guys, how about a citizenship? Because the visa that allowed our daughter at that point to be in the country is about to expire.
Right.
So where are we at?" And then we got a nice letter and a visit, and we were excited that something is moving. But little did we know, well, this was actually
a spy coming in.
no, it was a parallel process that happened,
Right.
but out of a total different reason that we found out later.
Right. So basically, essentially what happened was that original email that we got before we went to China, that office basically came back at us and said, you disobeyed the instruction which we told you to stop this adoption. You did it anyways. And so now we're going to come after you. Now, again, we didn't
because there was a child in the country that was adopted and Germany didn't know about it. Right?
So they ended up coming and saying, we need to take this to court. We need to have a judge involved to decide if whether or not this is a good and lawful adoption. And at this point, we started freaking out and we didn't understand what was going on. And so we, of course, involved a lawyer on the German side who was looking at this and going, what on earth? This is insane. You have done nothing wrong. You've done everything right in your adoption, and we can easily prove this in court. But then the U.S. side, who we were in the process of finalizing the citizenship, was also freaking out because at this point, our daughter, Bobe, that's her name, she was considered in process for citizenship, which means she was adopted through an American agency. So she was basically already considered a U.S. citizen. And this freaked everybody out on that side. And it actually got to the point where U.S. senators were involved. Washington was involved. We had so many people that were contacting Germany saying, hey, this, you can't do this. Like, you cannot, come after this kid. And Germany basically said, yes, we can. And now we're actually going to take this family to court and fight for the guardianship over their daughter. And at that point, the U.S. was telling us, get on a flight and
get out of there.
Get out of there. They were like, we want you to pack up and just come to the U.S. Don't let them take your daughter. And it was just wild, absolutely just insane. And so we ended up,
which, if I may put in here, like, it was understandable where Germany came from.
Sure.
Because from their perspective, suddenly there was a adopted child in the country that nobody knew about. The child didn't have anything that allowed the child to be there. So all that makes sense, but we just followed what we were always told.
Right.
Yeah, and the issue was there was a wrong information that brought us on a rabbit trail that just wasn't the right one. And so down the road, suddenly they pulled the handbrake saying, wait a second, that's not how it works. While we were like, what are you talking about? She's already here. Yeah, more or less. That's not a good enough answer. So what do we do now? It was more like, oh no, Armageddon. This should have never happened. We have a case here that we are not... like we have a round shape here that doesn't fit in a round hole. What are we gonna do? This should have never happened. Therefore, it almost felt like everything was out of control. You know, like
Right.
we don't know what to do with this. This should have never happened. Okay, but it did happen. What do we do now? Well, we don't know. Well, good. We need to figure it out. No, this is not. You know, it felt like, okay, let's figure it out. Let's work it out. That's where do we go from here? But it was a lot like almost fighting that this is reality. No, this is already the case. This is not a scenario that can be try again or go back and do it again. It's already too late for that.
Yeah. And so we were in this really, really tricky situation where the U.S. was telling us to flee the country, go to the United States, which is, again, it was coming back to, is that our Nineveh? And our lawyer was telling us, don't you dare leave the country in the middle of court. And so we chose to listen to our lawyer. And
we also felt like running away is not like that
wasn't going to be a good decision. Right. So we went to court. Most terrifying day ever. They made our daughter testify, and she had no idea what was going on. She was barely speaking any English or German at that time and was so confused. And in the end, we won. We won the guardianship, but we didn't win the citizenship. We still haven't won the citizenship, so what that means is that our daughter, they recognize that, we are her parents, but they didn't decide to give the citizenship. But for us, it was a huge win. And at the end, that we at least had the guardianship. And at the end, I remember, it took a little while, but we finally had to come back into the courts and to get the approval for the guardianship. And everyone in our families, our closest friends were, everyone was rooting for us and praying for us and texting us. And then I remember, that afternoon we sent a text home to our families, hey, we won the guardianship. And everyone was so excited. My mom and my dad and my sister, they were all just relieved. And I remember us just thinking, oh, what a relief. Like everything is okay. And then that evening, very early in the morning, I got a call from my sister that my father had passed away. And it was unbelievably shocking and terrifying and all the feelings that come with grief. But I remember right after that, the guilt was so enormous. Do you remember that? Just feeling like,
oh, maybe we should have gone.
We should have
earlier,
gone.
Or dang, we missed that train. That's now the consequence,
And
that's how it felt.
It was awful. It was just gut wrenching. And I think in that time is when we knew we had to say yes to going to the United States. And in that moment that we finally said yes to going, I just remember there was this incredible peace that came over us, even though there was still tons of fear. And there were
a lot of worries.
Yeah.
A lot of questions that kind of were bringing worries, some fear, concerns. Yeah.
Right. And so we were, and we knew that we were supposed to go, but there was just still so many fears and questions, and wondering it was that we were supposed to do. And something that's also really important to understand is that through this whole time, we were actually wanting to pursue as soon as possible a second adoption. And once we had won the guardianship, and this is absolutely where we are, romantic idealists, we wrote back the same people who took us to court, who we would need their help to do a second adoption, and said, so could we try this again, guys, and do it together and do a second adoption? And now we can we know now what not to do, and we can be friends and do it all together. And what did they say, Uli?
Yeah, I mean, I remember there. It was like, hey, so since we're cool and you're cool, and we figured this all out, hey, oh great, let's go for round 2, right?
Right.
And they were like, nope.
Nope. It was a strong nope
Yeah.
from a lawyer, signed with a big stamp. So, a big 9. So, in that moment, it was also for us knowing if we stayed here, our daughter wouldn't have citizenship. It would constantly be a battle for her visa, and we wouldn't be able to grow our family.
I mean, we got a clear question. Hey, you guys either want to stay in Germany, or you guys want to go ahead with that second adoption.
Right.
Yeah.
And so through all of this, we knew, again, okay, we got to go. But like we said, there was peace, but there was still a lot of worries. There was a lot of fear. And I think that's always, for me, that's always a really good indication of, you're on the right path, but that doesn't mean that everything is feels okay yet. You still need to work through stuff, and you still need to figure out where it is that you're struggling with your worries and your fears. So, Uli, what was it for you when thinking about just going to the United States? What were your biggest fears?
I would say my biggest fear was not being able to provide for my family. Living in Germany and knowing the structure, knowing what is needed, how things work, how do legal things look like, how do business things look like, just being used to this structure and the system that I'm living in, and leaving that without having a clue yet how it works in the States, that was scary.
Right.
Because with that, it was also, are we going to be able to have enough finances in the States? Are we going to be able to figure out health insurance or other insurances and who knows what? All these things that
come with moving to another
country, and all the things that we have on autopilot in the country we lived in for so long.
Yeah. I think for me, it was, well, you guys have to understand that at the time in which we were saying yes to moving to the U.S. felt so much like a real life Nineveh at that time. I mean, this is, it was end of 2020. So there was, there's COVID, there's a pandemic going on. Doing an international move in the middle of a pandemic doesn't sound like a great idea. There was protests going on for Black Lives Matters. There was protests going on in the Capitol. It is still out of control. And I remember when we were telling people in the US, like our family who has been longing for us to come home for so long, our closest friends, people from both political parties were writing us and going, are you sure?
Are you sure you want to do this?
Are you sure you want to come home right now? Are you sure you don't want to stay in sweet, old, comfortable, safe Germany?
Good old Germany.
Where everything is taken care of and everything is okay. And it was super hard to explain why on earth we would be going back, except for that we just knew
Plus my family being like, are you sure? It's like, yeah,
A lot of tears.
not sure, but sure. Yeah.
Yeah, not sure, but sure. So there we were, and then my biggest fear, and I have to just share this part, was separation again. Like I said, at this point, Uli didn't have a green card, and I remember we were sitting there one night and we were talking. And we often do this. We like to sit and identify our fears, naming our fears, naming, just how we're feeling and being able to identify them in order to conquer them. And I remember saying my biggest fear is separation. I mean, here we were, we just brought our daughter home. She was being threatened, guardianship on her from somebody else, and I was just so scared that we would move and we wouldn't be able to stay. And at that time we were getting information that, yeah, of course Uli can get a green card because he's married to a US citizen. However, it could take up to 18 months, and in that time he might not be able to work, and you guys might, either you need to stay in Germany and get it before you can come, or you need to be landlocked in the US. It was a nightmare. And I remember just sitting there going, that's my biggest fear. And then this little question popped into my head, and for me, I believe it was God asking me that, if I could provide a green card for you tomorrow, how would that make you feel? And I immediately said,
a good coach.
Yeah, what a good coach. I immediately said free. I would feel so free to be able to just go. Well, the next day, I actually had to call the U.S. Embassy here in Germany to update them on our daughter's case. And they said, well, what are you planning to do now? And I said, well, because, of all the situation, we've actually decided we need to go back to the States. And they said, okay, then we need to get Uli a green card. And I said, well, yeah, he needs to get a green card. And they said, well, because of everything you guys have been through, this is actually considered emergency, and we're going to expedite that.
When do you need it?
Yeah, when do you need it by? And it was, within like 2.5 months, we had that green card in your hand.
Woo-hoo.
And that was just unbelievably wild. And from there, just so many things started to fall in place. Uli, what else started to fall in place? What else was provided for us in that time once we said yes?
Yeah, like this visa was a big one, or the green card. That was definitely the biggest surprise. But then there were also resources like our community came around us and helped us. We were offered a landing place in the US where we can arrive and first get adjusted. We were getting help with our stuff. How do we get...
Our container was
provided for us. How do we, we had so much...
Our shipping container,
stuff accumulated over the years. We had to decide, are we going to sell everything? Are we going to leave it? Or are we able to take some? And yeah, we were able to, all the things that are dear to us, we were able to take with us.
Right.
Yeah.
I think just one by one, a lot of the logistical things like health insurance and where you're going to land and car and... just all those stuff that just making a quick decision to move internationally, like those are not easy things to bring together. And one by one, we've seen all of them being taken care of and provided for. And I think more than anything, it was just a really great indication for us that I think we're on the right track. But,
yeah, and just to say with that, it's not that everything just, some things really opened up. Some things suddenly were attractive to pursuit. So it's not necessarily that everything just fell from the sky. It was also, at least for me, that a lot of energy was suddenly available for me, like almost like released, because I got so excited about being unstuck, getting unstuck, and pursuing a path that opens up new perspectives again, Right. And also the perspective of, okay, this is a great opportunity for us as a family, for Bobe. This is safe, this is healthy, and I think out of this also a lot of energy was released to dig into these uncomfortable things like, okay, we need to figure out health insurance. Okay, we need to figure out moving, and as we went on that journey, I feel like more and more resources were released and doors opened up for us. Lights went on, green, go, and this was, again, this is our story. This is how we experienced it. And it might not always be that suddenly everything aligns, but I do believe that when you are getting unstuck, that you suddenly feel this new wave of energy, like a fresh wind in your sails, that helps you to go onward, forward.
Right. Which is kind of where we want to like shift into, which is the understanding the why we got stuck, why others might, get stuck themselves, and how we felt like we made the decision to get unstuck. So why were we stuck for so long? People listening to this going, 7 years, guys.
What the heck is wrong with you?
What is going on? Why was it so long for us?
There are many layers to this question, or to the answer to this question. Let's say it this way. I would say, from the top of my head, well, we set out to establish a new chapter for our career, and we set out to scale and to it's one up, one level higher, and we set out to do that, and that failed.
Right.
It didn't work. And instead of accepting failure, we buckled down and did everything just in order to save what failed. And instead of admitting, well, this didn't work, and allowing us to say, that's okay. Where do we go from here? Or let's take a step back, or a big thing didn't work. Let's take it serious and take also a big step back and some time off to reassess. I jumped into survival mode.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, this cannot happen. This is not happening. I will fix this. Mm-hmm. This is not over yet.
Let the ship sink.
We didn't lose this. We can still win.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to buckle up, and comes hell or high water, we will get through this. And I think that was a big part for me, to not accept failure and not to be okay with failure, but to just be like, no, this cannot be. This needs to be a success, and to beat myself up in the process of just trying to keep something alive that's dead.
Right.
And
we're very stubborn people.
We can be very stubborn people. Yeah.
What did you say the other day? We're like pit bulls.
It's like, I felt like I was, when a pit bull bites, the dangerous thing about that is that he doesn't release the bite. It locks,
The jaws lock.
And so that's why pit bulls are kind of feared, because when a pit bull bites you, that's it. Like, you won't get him off your hand or arm or limb, And I felt a little bit like that in this process, that I kind of bit into this idea or this goal, and the goal wasn't there anymore.
Right.
But I also didn't release. I was just, and in a way, culturally coming from Germany, where efficiency is being rewarded, and
failure is not accepted.
Failure is not accepted that much. You really don't really talk about it. You don't really talk about your emotions. It's about the outcome of your actions, right? And so I think that was just a very unhealthy position to be in, because it didn't allow me to take care of the important things that I needed in this moment of time,
Absolutely. I think coming back to the Nineveh part, I think, like we said before, we weren't really consciously making a decision knowing we're supposed to go to the US and deciding not to go. But I think the red thread for us of why we were stuck so long was we were really, really passionate, and we are still passionate about the work that we're doing and who we are and you know our vision for our lives and what we want. But we were not in the right place. We were like, we had the best seeds and we were putting it in the wrong soil. And no matter how much we continue to tend to that soil and nurture that soil and fight for that soil, it just was not going to grow our plants, our seeds. And I remember one of the last conversations that we had with my dad was about this. And I basically came to him and I said, man, I just feel like we're failing and nothing is working and I don't know what more to do. I think we just need to give up. And he said, you know, have you ever been to a really, really beautiful theater? You know, you walk in and there's just the red velvet curtains and maybe there's, you know, gold on the wall and the most comfortable seats and the lighting is beautiful and the ambiance is just spectacular. And I was like, well, yeah, of course I've been to beautiful theaters. And he said, right. Would you ever go to a beautiful theater if there wasn't a play that you wanted to see? And I said, no. And he said, you guys have an incredible play, but you have been focusing on the theater. You've been focusing so much on where you are and making it work in this place, and that you haven't been putting all your time and your effort into your play. And your play is spectacular. And focus on your play. And I think in that moment, we realized that all of our energy, our resources, and everything was going into making it work in this place and not into our play and not into what it is that we wanted to be doing. And the things that were, you know, bringing some fruit were not the things that we're really passionate about.
Yeah, it wasn't. We didn't have appetite for that fruit, right? And it was like, I remember a lot of energy, time, money went into establishing the theater. And then you had the most beautiful theater, and you're like, okay, so what's next?
Right.
And then, okay, what are we gonna do now inside the theater? And there is a lot of talent and a lot of skills and ideas, and we were never short of coming up with ideas and strategies for the content for the play. But we totally neglected also just bringing it together and making it work, you know? So,
and I think just
but again, I think that came out of this survival mode. You know, this needs to work. This needs to work. I need to see something that is looking legit, or I need to establish something that I can hold on to that gives me a foundation, or that kind of catches me, you know. And so building a theater that looks great, that feels great, but it would have been better to say, actually, what gives me my essence is the play, and I am actually the play, you know. Right. Like I'm the essence of the play. I need to take care of that first.
And I think that brings us to how we feel about the States now, is like understanding how those feelings, how that season felt, and that our focus is not really on the place, but it's what it is that we're doing and who we are as a family. But what got us unstuck?
You know what, thinking back of that time where I went into the forest and I was frustrated, I was mad, and I changed my question from why am I in the whale, which is coming out of the perspective of a victim, towards well, what was Nineveh in the first place? Right. You know,
how'd I get off track?
I think that was when I feel like I hit rock bottom when it came to ideas. What can I do? Where do we go? And what needs to happen? You know, and I think this place of hitting rock bottom forced me to get out of my comfort, but also out of this position of being the victim, of being like, you know what, I'm so over this. Like, what's the dang Nineveh, you know? But I think it was that you just snap out of this this position of being the victim, because it also got so I got so used to it, you know.
Right.
It's not that it ever was comfortable, but it's somehow, I think I started just believing in it. Well, I guess that's just how it is. I guess that's just how it is to pioneer and be an entrepreneur and start something and try something. I guess that's just part of life. It's no fun at all, but I guess that's just how it is. And that's I think what was the point where I hit rock bottom. I was like, okay, I'm done here, you know? Yeah.
I think for me, it was being a mother and not wanting what we have experienced for our daughter to feel that way, and also wanting her to thrive and to be in an environment where she could be all of who she is and pursue what it is that she wanted, and to just be free and wild. And I realized that I was so willing to go to the ends of the earth to make that happen for her, and I wasn't willing to do it for myself. And it was this very deep revelation, painful revelation, that I really didn't feel like I was deserving to get out of the belly of the whale. That, like you said, like you just get so used to being stuck and being in this uncomfortable place, and that this is what life has given you, and this is how, you know, you've just got to make the best out of it. And although you're in the pit of a whale and it's gross and it's disgusting, you can put some, you know, wallpaper up and nice little lamp and get cozy on in there and you'll be fine. And I realized that how could I raise my daughter to believe that she was deserving of getting everything that, you know, to having the life that she wanted, and being in a safe environment and a healthy environment and an environment that championed her when I wasn't able to do it for myself. And I think that was really what made me go, no, this is not how I want to be. This is not how the mother I want to be. This is not how I want to raise her. And for me, that was how I think that I came unstuck and said yes to going. So how can somebody else become unstuck? This is our story. This is our very personal story. And this is our journey of how we experienced being stuck in the belly of a whale. But so many of you have your stories of being stuck and what it's done to you. And I hope that for many of you, it was more of a 3-day journey than a 7-year journey. But yeah, what would you say? What is it? What does it mean to get unstuck, and how does someone become unstuck?
My lesson that I learned was the only person who can get me unstuck is me.
Yeah.
Not waiting for somebody else to get me out of there, but leaving this position of I'm the victim, you know, or I am, I can't change the circumstances, or oh, how unfortunate, but to like the only person that can start this process of getting unstuck, that's me. And if it's me asking for help, you know, or if it's me changing the questions that I'm asking, and changing my perspective, or making some calls for more information, you know, or asking for help. So that's what I learned in this process. Actually, it needed, like, I was the only one who could have gotten me unstuck.
Yeah.
Even if I bring it back to a spiritual level, you know, is where I'm like, well, I believe God can get you unstuck, but I think you need to be the first one who takes the first step. You know, I don't think it's just gonna happen by you being like a little child. I need help. I'm stuck. Life is hard. Sorry, this is my impersonation of myself as a little kid, I guess. Yeah, but I that's what I learned in this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It's only us who can get ourselves unstuck. And I think it's part of all, it's also just accepting the accepting of closing one season before you can really accept the next one, the next journey. It's accepting the failures, it's accepting the grief, it's accepting
To be
everything.
okay with
Yeah,
that.
with what
Yeah.
happened. And I feel
Yeah.
like that for us is something that we really gained out of this time, is going, is really like, yeah, there was some areas that were so beautiful and so great in this season, and treasures and relationships that came out of it. Absolutely. I hope that like some of our deep, like our dear friends who are listening to this going, well, what about me?
Well,
But
they were the ones who kept us
they were our reason
alive.
to, a big reason to stay. But I think it's really going, an overall feeling of that season is this, and I don't have to make that season anything else to justify it. I can just let it lie. I can let it be. That's what it was, because the next season that I'm going to walk into, I'm trusting that it's going to be something different. But you got to close that one season before you can transition into the next one. And I think that's where just the healing and letting it go before we can move on to the next one.
And also I think in our case we had, it's a step that most people cannot understand. Like, why would you go from here to there? That doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, for us, it felt like this is it. There is no other.
This is where the track we need to go on.
Other option. This is it, and we are excited about it.
Right.
Liz, what would you say was the biggest lesson you learned from being stuck in this whale?
Perspective. I mean, I think when I take it back to Jonah and Nineveh, I think of what he must have been feeling from the point of being thrown overboard, and these guys threw me into the water, and then a whale comes and swallows me up, and you constantly are thinking, oh, why is this happening to me? And all of these things that are going on in your life, that's the constant question of like, why me? Why me? And when you realize that you're in this whale until you get back on track, suddenly the whale, in a way, becomes safe and a blessing, because it's keeping you where you're supposed to be until you get to where you need to be. And I think that for me, I started looking at everything that I had been really frustrated about in the years before. Why didn't they work? Why wasn't this happening? I'm giving so much. Why isn't it working? I have great seeds, but the soil isn't taking it. Why? And realizing it wasn't the seeds, it was the soil. And that all the things, and I was so thankful that all these things happened, because they were happening to get me right back on track. And that's a really, really difficult perspective to have when you're in it. But when you start coming out of it and you realize, oh, I'm so thankful that my plant didn't grow there, or this didn't happen there because I wasn't really supposed to be there. You're thankful that you are in the belly of the whale. And that also made me realize that no matter how off track I get, I can always come back. No matter how stuck I feel in my life, there is always a season to be spit back out, dust myself off, and get back on the path where I'm supposed to be. And I hope we don't ever experience another 7 years of that. But I think now, knowing what it feels like, just knowing how to move forward and being quicker to make decisions of going, okay, this doesn't feel right. I think we're off track. I think we're getting stuck, and getting back in there. What about you?
Yeah, I think everything that you mentioned and has been mentioned before, but also, right now I would say, well, I rather wrestle with the uncomfortable consequences of change, and really take the time to take care of myself as well as the issue at hand than just getting tunnel vision and bite like a pit bull in order to somehow get out on top of it by thinking I can fix it.
Right. Right.
And I by thinking I can still make this work. Or no, it's fine. Let's just keep swimming. Let's keep swimming. I think it would have been better to just say, you know what? No, I need to right now look at this, wrestle with this, accept it, and work out of that position. What's next? What am I gonna do now?
Right. So how do people get unstuck? What's the next step for people?
Depends where they are. That would be my question to everybody who feels stuck. What do you think is needed in order to get you unstuck? What do you think got you stuck? What was Nineveh? Yeah. Questions, just good questions. And we also will have another episode on this with more of a coaching perspective. And we will then look a little bit or talk a little bit more about what does it mean to be stuck and what is kind of like, a coaching approach to that.
So that's our story about how we got stuck in the belly of a whale and how it chewed us up and spit us out back into the US of A. So we're excited to go with you guys on this adventure. And we're going to invite you guys now to listen to our song called The Whale Song from Liz and the Lions. If you don't have time right now to listen to it, that's okay. You can pick it up on any place that you stream music or buy our album. But we just invite you to take a moment to think about areas in your life where you're feeling stuck and ask yourself some of these questions. What was Nineveh? What was I running from? And why did I ended up where I am now? And be wild, be free, live as lions.
Invitation